2, 3. This time of day, everything's okay. I take a long look around, I have to say, this time of year, it becomes clear.
Hello, welcome to your friends and neighbors. I'm your host, Willy Jones, and we're going to be talking about a topic today that I never thought I'd be talking about on your friends and neighbors. A few weeks ago, a gentleman that is quite acquainted here with Cat TV came up to me and said, I have a couple books here written by a lady named Shasta Mitten. It's about two kids. One is a girl, one is a boy, and it's all about hunting. And would you be interested in talking about these books on your show? And he said, now I know you're not exactly a hunter. And I said, no, I don't go out and shoot the Bambis, but I have nothing against hunting if it's being done properly and safely and, and all that jazz. So my guest today it actually has a show here on Cat TV called The Future of Hunting. You might have caught that show. He was he was very brave and said to me, "I'd like to be on your show. I've never seen it, but so I bet I am assuring you he's probably going to watch this one. I hope he does, anyways."
I've watched a couple,
And,
actually.
okay, well, and you can hear him right now. Here's my guest for today, and that is Kevin Hoyt. Good morning, Kevin.
Thank you, Willie, for
Good
having me.
afternoon, good
Thanks.
evening, whatever time you're watching us. I know some of you watch us at 3:30 in the morning, so bless you. Yeah, so we have two books here that I read over, and I found them very interesting. One is about a young boy named Wyatt, and that's called Wyatt's First Whitetail, and it's by, as I said, Shasta Sitten. It's illustrated by a man named Marvin Teeples. The other book is called Grace Goes Bow Hunting, again by Shasta Sitten and Marvin Teeples. And they're both very interesting. And the first thing, though, I do need to mention about both of the books, it says here that it's Dr. Deer approved.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what the Dr. Deer program is?
Well, the Dr. Deer, again, it's a recognizable brand name and a mark. Basically, it's an educational, I don't even want to say organization, but when you see the Dr. Deer stamp, you know that it's approved as far as educational and ethical.
Okay.
And just like the other book, Grace Goes Bow Hunting,
Right.
is endorsed, you'll see, by Eva
Right.
Shockey. And Eva Shockey, and as far as
Yeah, I don't know her.
women in the outdoors, Eva's a big one. She's a beautiful woman, but a top-notch huntress, and I think a celebrity as far as outdoor personalities
okay.
go. So again, those are the type of endorsements that are behind this book.
Is that somebody you've had on your show? Have you-
It is not. In fact, her father, Jim Shockey, I forgot how many world records he has, but it's a hunting family, very involved with the outdoor television industry.
Okay. And you do a lot of traveling yourself. I mean,
do.
you not just in the States. You just came back from Croatia.
We do. We go all over the place. Like I said, that's what my program is about, is recruitment and retention, getting kids up off the couch, away from a little bit of technology, and back out into the great outdoors.
That's one thing I like, getting away from the technology. I approve
There's a
of
lot
that.
of pluses that come with it, but there's a lot of negatives
Right.
that come with it too.
Right,
And I
right.
think getting back to your core values, your roots, your heritage, to me at least, that's very important. That's one of the reasons I'm really excited about this book.
Right.
Early education. I'm pro early education. Children's books are probably one of the earliest and most used forms of doing that. And as far as I know, Shasta's kind of hit an untapped market here. I've never seen a children's book
No,
having to do with hunting.
I haven't either. I mean, of course, I haven't been looking for them, but no, I haven't either. Um, something you said too that night, I thought, oh, I better tap into that one, but I can't think now. Maybe it'll come back to me afterwards. But now, what were you doing in Croatia? That was what it was.
That was a wounded warrior hunt, actually. Again, as my fans know, most of the time I'm dealing with kids.
Yeah.
So we do,
most of the time, yeah. Boys and
99% boys, girls, but it's, 18 and under for the most part. Again, I'm trying to lead by example. I'm hoping some people out there see the passion and joy that I get out of being a mentor, and they follow suit and do the same thing.
Right.
It's about getting the kids involved for me. But for this one, we had, it was a company called Wild Jaeger, actually, and they do a wounded warrior hunt every year overseas, and I'm fortunate enough to be a part of that as well.
So does that mean you're you're not hunting for wounded warriors?
No,
the
we're
wounded warriors are hunting
right.
with you.
They were hunting fallow deer on Plavnik Island in Croatia, and there's a few wild boar on there, and SCI Dalmatian sheep, which again, that's only one of 2 locations in the world where you can find that species. So that was a big hunt in its own right.
Hunting for sheep?
For sheep, right? Dalmatian sheep. They were just added to the Safari Club International list of trophies. So they're, like I said, they're an upcoming species that I'm sure lots of people are going to be after.
And fallow deer?
Fallow deer.
Fallow was fallow.
It's a European deer. It's, I guess, like we have white-tailed deer over here in the United States. If I said, Willie, let's go deer hunting, you'd automatically jump to whitetail.
Okay.
While in Europe, it's either a roe deer or a fallow deer.
Okay.
So local people here in Bennington can go down to our deer park. The new deer that they just put in our deer park are actually, those are domesticated, but those are fallow deer.
Right, right. How many do they have at the park right now?
I'm not sure, to be
'Cause
honest. I
sometimes
want to say
there's
there's
quite a few there,
there's
and
10 or
sometimes-
15 at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm putting my glasses on today, folks, because I have some.
I'm almost with you, Willie.
Well, I want to make sure that there's things I want to get in here. On this first book that she wrote, Wyatt's First Whitetail, one of the things I talk about at the very beginning is responsibility. Safety around guns and making sure to take a hunter's safety course. But also, one of the things that they mention is the grandfather wants him to take, one of the responsibilities is to take care of his dog. Now, is that to show him responsibility leading up to in hunting?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a million different attributes that we can get from hunting. Patience, discipline, respect, humility. I mean, there's a full gamut there. But I think that's part of it. If you want to be, when you buy a hunting license, responsibility is a very prominent word. You're responsible for the deer, you're responsible for your own actions, safety, all these other things. So I think as far as getting kids, being self-sustaining and thinking ethically and being responsible, hunting it's a lot more than just shooting stuff.
Right.
This is the foundation of good people, and in fact they've done studies on that, and they found that kids, they're much more sympathetic, they're much more understanding with outdoors, with conservation, with the whole nature thing. When you're a hunter, it just makes you a better person.
Right, yeah, I want to touch on some of that stuff after we've talked about the
Sure.
books. Now, the other thing was that safety around guns. Now, meaning I'm assuming that you got to get used to the gun and how it works, and having the gun in a safe place,
Right.
different things like that.
Every aspect. I mean, a gun is designed
Cleaning.
to take life. That's what it was designed for. It's a tool. But when you're around anything like that, obviously safety is number one. And it's everything from cleaning and storing to hunting, to how to handle a gun, how to walk in the woods. I'm a volunteer hunter education instructor. There's hundreds of thousands of us spread all across the U.S. It's a free course. But in most states, if you want to start hunting, that's the first step, is you have to go and take a 12 to 14 hour hunter education course. And a lot of it is pretty basic stuff.
Okay.
There's nothing real complicated, but we want to teach you the basics of gun safety. You got to know where to aim when you're harvesting an animal. Again, that responsibility word comes back up. You got to be responsible, and we practice and try to make quick, humane, ethical kills. And that's the same thing with this book. I mean, one thing that I'm very impressed, you mentioned the grandfather. This is all about family values and family time together, and I think ethically Shasta has nailed it. I think she did a great job. I'm excited about the books.
Right, and in the other book, Grace, that we'll be talking about too, it's the mother and the daughter going
Right.
hunting. It's interesting. I like the fact that you use the word harvesting, because that's what you do with your garden. you're taking in food from your garden and stuff. So I guess
Right.
that makes sense using the word harvesting to go out to hunt
It
for
is,
deer.
and it's politically correct, to
Right.
say that word. But again, it's the winter is the pinch point for our wildlife. In the springtime, there's lots of food to go around, and everybody's happy. But
Right.
when winter comes, it's really tough, and
It's tough for me. Yeah.
that's the season of death. It's beautiful, but it's the season of death. So
Right.
naturally, the fall is when we hunt, is just like with your corn. These are excess animals, is what I like to tell people. Because of natural reproduction, deer multiply every year. So what hunting does, the conservation, the science behind hunting, is we're allowed as hunters to come in and take a certain population, a certain percentage, and it's roughly 10% for big game.
Okay.
So in Vermont State, we've got about 120,000 deer. 10% of that's 12,000. That's our harvest goal that is set by the state every year. They want us to take that much of the excess animals. And again, not to get into too many stats, but
Yeah.
the turnover rate's about 30%. So every year there's 30% more deer. Hunters take 10. That's still leaving 20% for roadkill and starvation and predation and all the other horrible ways to pass.
Like in The Lion King, we're talking about the circle of life.
Right,
Yeah.
right, it is.
Right.
And I
Right.
feel a big part of that. I mean, I'm part of a deer's everyday life. Sometimes they're death, but that's the unexpected. It's the exception, not the expected.
All right. Now they talk about taking the hunter safety course. Now, do kids and adults, men, women, girls, boys, or whatever, would they all take the same kind of course? I mean, would you see 12-year-olds and a 30-year-old man who's decided, well, I've decided to hunt? Do they all take the
You
same
sure will.
type of test? Okay.
Absolutely, it's the same. And again, it depends on what state you're in. Here in Vermont State, there's no age limit. So literally, if your kids are old enough to read and write and comprehend the test, if they pass it, then they can get their hunter education card and go. Other states, it might be 12 years old. New York State for big game is 16 years old. So it depends. Canada's 18. Depends on where you're going, but it's all pretty standard curriculum for both the firearm safety instruction and the bow hunter safety instruction.
Yeah, and the bow hunting. Now, are those two separate courses?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assume they'd have to be.
Well, when
certainly a different.
I say firearm safety, but it's a general hunter's education. They
Right.
do briefly touch on bow hunting, but if you want to be a bow hunter and actually get the license, you have to take that separately.
And where do you take courses like that here in Bennington?
Well, in Bennington, in Vermont State, and again, it doesn't matter what state, go to your local DNR, Department of Natural Resources,
Okay.
or Vermont Fish and Wildlife, and there'll actually be a hunter education link on there. And you can just click on the link, and
Okay.
they're sporadic. Like I said, we're all volunteer instructors. It doesn't cost anything for the public to take this course, but you have to find it is the hard part. You got to
Right.
find the dates and when and where. That'll be on the website.
So if I was taking that test, what are some of the questions that might be thrown my way? Just an example, a couple examples.
Well, we could talk about what are the parts to a bullet, or where do you effectively aim when you're hunting deer versus a turkey, when to shoot, when not to shoot, safe zones of fire. There's it's a pretty big, when you say hunting, that's a big category.
Okay.
And again, this course, even in a 12 or 14-hour course, it's jam-packed. There's lots and lots of stuff to talk about. We climb tree stands, we follow blood trails.
I want to talk
There's
about that
there's
too.
lots of things. Yeah.
in the second book.
Right.
Yeah, well, when I was at UVM, I went to UVM for 1 year before I ended up at Castleton State College. I was in the ROTC program. And one of the things we had to do was to be able to take apart, it's an M16? I don't know what it is. We had to take apart the gun and put it back together again.
Right.
Well, I took the gun apart. Everybody was gone. Willie was still sitting there
Trying to put it back together.
Figure out why the gun wasn't working and all that stuff. 3 hours later, the whoever was in charge, I can't remember who was in charge or whatever, and I said, I'm sorry, I cannot. Well, there was some little piece that was on the floor that I didn't know was there. It's like when you
And
get
you're
that
missing
piece
it.
missing from a puzzle.
Right.
That one piece.
The
Oh
one
my
link.
God! I got 1,000 pieces, and that missing piece, and So and I used to, when I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, I went to a rifle range. There used to be a rifle range in Manchester, where I grew up. A man named Fred Heinel was in charge. I think there was some other people there too, not just Fred, but my mother and father said, "Well, go and try it and stuff like that." I was actually a pretty good shot. I wasn't exactly Annie Oakley, but I was pretty good. But I've never been that comfortable myself around guns. So, all right. Well, getting back to this book, the boy Wyatt, he's very anxious to shoot this buck.
Right.
And one of the things that the grandfather is trying to, that you have to, not necessarily remain calm, but you have to think ahead. You got to think about what's going on here. And at one point he sees a fox, and he gets excited about the fox, but the grandfather says, "No, we only have a deer tag.
Right.
We don't have a tag for killing fox. Plus, you're going to scare the deer."
Right.
By shooting at something that is not, that you don't have the deer tag for. Where do you get the deer tags? You go to the
right when you get it. Once you pass hunter education,
same.
you go to a licensed dealer.
The same. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And they see a doe. They talk about how you can't shoot a doe, but aren't there certain times when there are doe seasons?
There is, and again, it varies. From state to state. Again, this is almost a great book for Vermont State during our typical rifle season, which Wyatt is hunting with a rifle in the buck. It's buck only, so it kind of fits with our state, just on coincidence. But yeah, during rifle season here in Vermont State, you cannot harvest a doe. You can't. So that's, again, you're talking about ethics and doing the right thing. Staying legal is very important.
Yeah. Is there a lot of? I can remember when I was a kid. We were stopped once. I can't remember exactly what the story was, but they thought we were deer jacking. I was with my mother and father. We were coming back from Shushan, New York, visiting friends, and I don't remember the circumstances. For some reason, they is there a lot of that goes on, deer jacking?
Well, I think poaching is a problem still, but I think it's pretty limited. And again, that's the science behind conservation that I feel is my job to explain to the public. We need law enforcement to protect our wildlife. We need deer police just like we need police, and we're the guys that pay for it, hunters. So when you go out and you purchase a hunting license, by allowing us to take that 10% that I'm talking about, it literally pays for the other 90%. This is how we transplant endangered species and relocate and protect threatened species, and all the wonderful programs that all the Fish and Wildlife agencies do. They have Apples for Wildlife, where we're pruning these heritage apple orchards just for the wildlife to have food. That's our forestry service. There's game wardens. There's a giant package. It's nationally, it's billions of dollars a year that it costs to take care of our wildlife, and hunters are the ones that are doing that. So.
I don't know that apple project. What is that?
Apples for Wildlife, it's called. It's the Vermont Forestry Service.
Huh.
We've got actual, they're called heritage apple orchards, where a lot of these different strains of apples that no longer exist. The only place they exist is in our Vermont forests.
Okay.
And they're pruned and taken care of by our forestry service, not for people, but for the wildlife. But I can tell you, as a hunter, they taste pretty good. I've had a lot of really unique and delicious apples in the
Are there a lot of people, men, women, that go into forestry service?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's enough. I mean, I think it's like any other field.
Right.
That's, again, talking about the demographic of hunting. That's one of the greatest things I think about our sport is it's literally, garbage men and construction workers to doctors, lawyers, and presidents. It's a really big demographic of people that enjoy this.
Now, after they get the deer in the story, the grandfather says we have to make sure that the deer is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hear stories so often about somebody that's hit a deer, and they think the deer is dead. They get out of the car, go check, and all of a sudden, the deer jumps up and runs
alive
across the field. Maybe this is a stupid question, but if you think you have killed a deer, How do you make sure that deer
Yeah.
is
Well,
actually dead?
well, when you're hunting, I always tell people you approach the deer from the back. You don't want to walk up to his face. You want to
Okay,
come up behind the
that makes
deer.
sense.
And I literally will take my rifle barrel and I like to touch the eye.
Okay,
And if it blinks, he's still alive.
okay.
So, and again, deer are pretty cute and they look pretty harmless, but a deer can kick pretty good and they bite and they're
Well,
very, very strong. You wouldn't want to, especially any wounded animal. I mean, you're talking in that position, they're literally fighting for their life just like we would.
right.
So,
I know a moose can do a big
moose too.
damage to a
It
car,
does even,
but deer can too. I
even
mean,
even a
really.
squirrel. I mean, a little tiny squirrel, if he's fighting for his life, I mean, that's a big deal. Any wild animals deserve respect, and right, you have to give them their distance.
And that is one of I don't know if that happens. Yes, that's in both of the stories. Uh, the grandfather in Wyatt's story tells him that thank the deer, stroke the deer, and
Right.
tell the deer thank you for giving us this food and making the. I mean, it almost becomes not religious, but it's I don't know. It's just a nice way of.
I think you can stay with religious, to be
Okay.
honest. A lot of people, that's their church, is the outdoors, and it is
That's true.
it is the accomplishment of taking a deer. Now, a lot of people think it's easy. You drive down the highway and they're all over the place, right? But
Right.
try going out in the woods and trying to harvest a deer. It's a little bit harder. On average, it takes 102 years to get a deer, 2 years
really?
worth of hunting.
And then, of course, you got these
So-
people just by accident they go out and
Yeah,
their first time
absolutely.
out to get a bear. Or
And as
something,
we
yeah.
get older, we get a little better, and
Yeah, yeah.
we might be able to increase our odds a little bit. But I think that's a very real situation. That's another thing I love about these books. I think Shasta has nailed the average typical hunt. Every kid that I've taken, one of the first things you do is you pet the deer. You stroke it. I have a prayer that I actually say with my
Oh,
kids,
okay.
where we thank Jesus for giving us the deer and thank the deer for giving its life. We talk about because we've taken this one deer, all the other deer can live a better life now, and we're going to feed our family with it. But the big picture is I don't want to I don't want my kids to lose sight of the fact that they took a life. In my opinion, that's one of the most powerful and most it's a very deep thing, and I don't want that to be once you've taken a life, you can't give it back. And I tell my kids that in this prayer, and then literally the blood's on you. You took this animal's life, and we give them a couple paint
You see,
stripes
that's
with the
what's
blood.
important to me is if you're going to be going out hunting, you're going to use that animal. You're going to have it for food.
Sure.
Maybe you're going to use other parts of the deer for different things. But as long as you are
Utilizing it.
utilizing that deer, I
Yeah.
mean, these people who just want to go out and hunt for no good reason, that's who gives the industry a bad
bad name.
reputation.
And honestly, Willie, I don't know anybody that's in it for the kill. That's
Well,
out
that's
there
good to
just
hear.
killing. Well, that's the truth. In all my experience and all my travels all over the world, I've never met anybody that's just out there to kill animals. Specifically, hunters, I think, are the biggest animal lovers. And I can tell you, again, from personal experience, that there's a sense of loss every time we take a deer. It's what we're trying to do,
Right.
but it's at the same time, you feel for it. The animals, I'm in love with the white-tailed deer. Like I said, he's taught me everything.
Oh, there's nothing like
he's
a fawn.
big,
Oh my God.
absolutely. And the same thing when I see a fawn or a fawn nursing on a doe or even a big trophy buck, just to see an animal like that in the wild is, that's reward enough. We don't always shoot them.
Right. And in her afterward, it says here, she writes, hunting is widely misunderstood and demonized by today's media. Most children are taught at a very early age that hunting is evil, which is, of course, an inaccurate statement, as hunters are one of the most powerful driving forces behind the wildlife management and habitat conservation, exactly what you've been saying.
Right.
Hunting teaches children firearm safety, outdoor competency, and to love and respect nature. These are three of the main points that I strive to impart in my book, Wyatt's First White Tail. I truly hope that you enjoy the book and read it for years to come. And so a lot of the things that she has touched upon you've elaborated a little bit more, um, uh, I appreciate that. I think that's great. Now, the other book, Grace Goes Bow Hunting, we've got the same idea, except that Grace is going out with her mother.
That's right.
And one of the things,
Girl power.
Yeah, a couple days ago in the banner, there was a right on the front page, talking about how more and more women are hunting. I think they said in 2012 it was up to 1.5 million women hunting, and they think that it's because of movies like Brave, The Hobbit, The Hunger Games. Girls, young women are seeing that they could have that same power, as you said, girl power or whatever. And of course, marketers are having a field day with this.
Sure.
They're going out
They
and
are.
having oh well, we'll design, we'll get exercise. They're going to stress the idea that you're getting out there and exercising, which is so
Yeah.
important to so many people nowadays.
Well,
All these different
again,
things.
that's another great thing about hunting is you don't have to be big or strong or old, or you definitely don't have to be a boy to
No.
to go hunting. Women can
You
do
have
it.
a
And
lot of young women
verily,
and
it's
girls on your show.
absolutely. In fact, again, I'm saying it on TV, and I don't say it in public too often, but girls are better hunters.
Really?
They actually, they have better patience. They're
Well,
actually,
I'm sure
they're,
they do.
They're designed better. They have softer fingertips. They've got better form and
okay.
follow through. And there's a
Okay.
lot of pluses, other than women
makes
taking
sense.
over the world
Yeah.
as always. Right?
Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
I knew that, Willie. That's one of in fact, it's the only aspect of our
The
sport
touch,
that's
yeah.
growing by leaps and bounds as women.
Huh.
And again, as a guy about recruitment and retention, wanting to involve the next generation, that's exciting for me because I think mom is much more likely to take little Timmy with him than dad is. And it's a matter of greed, to be honest. I mean, most people, they're not like me who can hunt 4 or 5, 6 months a year. They get 2 or 3 weekends. So you've got 6 days to go
Right.
do your passion and love it. And every time you take Tim, your chances are greatly diminished.
Right.
So a dad wants to get a deer too, and I think that greed factor
Right.
plays a part in it.
Right.
So I'm excited about having women join the sport, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love
And do
it.
you find that? I mean, in your travels, you're finding that you find that in this area too.
Absolutely.
That more and more
In fact,
women
I mean, this is a new thing. Back when I grew up, hunting camp was a guy thing.
Oh,
I know a lot of camps where women weren't allowed in deer camp.
Oh yeah. Oh God, that was like a stag.
That
week.
was.
I mean, that was.
I've been on several trips now where the guide is a woman, the outfitter's a woman, the whole camp is filled with women. We do a turkey hunt in New Hampshire every year where we literally take 10 or 12, 6 to 8-year-old girls and jam this rustic New Hampshire hunting camp full of little girls and their dads. And it is a fantastic time. It's a good time. Girls can enjoy it just as good as boys can.
Do some men have trouble accepting that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
I have a feeling you don't.
Especially when they're better. They
Yeah,
you
well,
get
I'm
beat by a
sure.
girl, it hurts a lot
But when
of
you
egos.
said yes, they have a lighter. They would have a lighter touch, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I used to own a bow shop before I got into the TV thing.
Oh, okay.
And we had a dart target system, which is an interactive video system that you shoot your bow at. And my wife at the time would shoot with some of my male customers, and I'd never see the customer again. So I literally had to tell my wife that you can't win.
Right,
a lot
right.
of these guys can't take that.
Right.
Of course, she was shooting 1,000 arrows a day, and we were avid. You get good when you practice that much.
Right.
So yeah, I literally had to tell her to lay off because the guys can't take
Right.
getting beat by a girl.
Now, when you do all this traveling and you're going abroad to do it too, are you sponsored? How do you?
I
mean,
am.
because that's got to be very costly. All this traveling. So
It is. I mean, the bread and butter behind my program and what I do is the guides, outfitters, and taxidermists. They're the ones that donate their services to me. I
Okay.
turn around and donate it to a kid, give it away.
okay, yeah.
And then show up as lowly cameraman to film it. But yeah, it is expensive to fly to Croatia.
Yeah.
Even here in the U.S. to hit 30, 40, 50 states in a year is,
You hit that many?
yeah, I mean, last year we did 36, I think.
Oh, wow.
We give away anywhere between 40 and 60 hunts a year. And, it's all to the public. Like I said, it's all mostly kids, but every once in a while we'll do some wounded warrior things.
Yeah.
But I do have sponsors, to answer your
Yeah.
question. You know, there's companies like the National Youth Hunting Association. You know, Grace Goes Bow Hunting, Whitetail Press,
Right, right.
Shasta Assistant
Okay.
is actually involved. She's a team partner now too.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and these are the guys that make it. There's not a lot of money in it. It's about passion and,
Yeah, yeah.
doing it.
Right.
It was never about the money for me. It was literally one man trying to change the world, and I can't imagine the country without hunting, without wildlife. So I made it my mission to.
Right, right. Now,
try
I
to
know you
save it.
have a son. How many children do you have?
I have 5 kids.
You have 5
I've
kids.
done my
I knew
share
you
of
had a son that was very good
overpopulating.
at sports at Mount Anthony. So
Yep.
I didn't know. 5 kids. How many boys, girls?
Yeah, I got 3 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
So
I know. Are
pretty good
they
mixed.
all still in school?
I've got 2 that are still left in school.
Oh,
3
okay.
that are older. They're all
Okay.
avid hunters.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
they
that
all
doesn't
love it.
surprise me.
Yeah. In
Right.
fact, again, the girls by far are the best shots in my family.
Isn't that weird?
My daughters
And that's
can
not
outshoot
weird.
me.
It's really, Well, in Grace Goes Bow Hunting, again, you think it'd be, well, more or less the same story, but it's not. Of course, they're using a bow here, and she's hunting with her mother, and we were talking about this upswing in that, and the marketing and all that. But on your own show, we've been talking about you have a lot of women that are involved. What's the biggest difference between going out to shoot with a rifle and to go out with a bow and arrow?
Well, it's a lot
I mean,
harder.
that's got to be, a bow and arrow must be a lot harder. I would
It's a
think
lot
aiming-
harder not just to aim and pull back, but you literally have to be in the deer's home court. You're in his living room. A rifle, you can reach out there a little bit. You know, 100 yards is a pretty good shot with a rifle.
Yeah.
You have to be within 30 yards or closer with a bow. And especially the whitetail deer. We're playing in their home turf. You know, if you came home tonight, Willie, and there's a big buck hiding behind your couch,
Right, right.
you,
I would not be
you'd
happy
probably
with-
see it, right?
Oh, yeah, I
he
think
could try
so.
to camo himself
I think
in
I
and
would
kind
see
of
it.
hide, but you
I
think
think
you'd see
I
it.
would see it.
Well, that's the same in the woods. When we are in a tree stand or we're leaning up next to a tree, we're literally the deer in your living room. So when a buck comes in, he notices that, you know, that wasn't there before. Very good ears, very good nose. They say they can smell a person from 500 yards.
Yeah.
They can run 10 times faster and jump 5 times farther, and they're pretty
Yeah.
they're pretty tough. So that's the
Yeah.
you know the again, that's why I love bow hunting, is that challenge. It really ups the challenge when you harvest an animal with your bow. Every animal's a trophy. It's that
Do
difficult.
you prefer bow hunting?
I do.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I think, again, that's certain. I think there's stages that you go through as a hunter, and again, maybe it's not politically correct, but when you start out, you're in kill mode. You want to be accepted, and every chipmunk and chickadee in the woods is in trouble. At least that's how it was for me. And as you eventually mature, I think you get to the point. I don't want to sound wrong because I still like to shoot stuff, but I'm at the point where I just soon watch a kid do it. In fact, for me, it's like reliving it. I get to see so many first deer harvests, and I tell hunters all the time, your first deer is very, very important, spiritual for a hunter. And we all go on, most of us, to shoot bigger, better bucks in our career, but the first one holds a special place in your heart. I remember mine like it
Yeah,
was
I'm sure.
yesterday, very vivid. And I think the only way to top that is when you watch your kid do it.
Are there many schools? I don't know about MAU does that have archery.
They're not yet, but that's another. I've got another high-profile friend. Joella Bates is her name. She's a 5-time female archer, and they just. I guess I can announce it here. They've just asked me to be the regional Vermont State Director for
All right.
NASP, which is National Archery in School
okay.
Program,
Good.
and Scholastic Archery.
Oh, good.
Again, in my experience here in Vermont, especially, I think we've got a lot of kids that are already involved. Got a lot of talent as far as marksmanship here in
Yeah,
Vermont
I would think
State.
archery would be good. Yeah, it'd be good
I think we
practice.
can really represent our state here, and I'm
Right.
excited. The schools don't even know about this yet,
Oh,
but
well.
I was literally in the last week or so was approached, and I think I'm going to proceed with that because I think it's good
Oh, that's
for our
great.
kids too.
Now you were talking about in the woods and the tree stands, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. My cousins insisted I go hunting with them once. I had a book with me. I ended up finding a tree, a low branch, getting up and sitting there and reading my book, which So I had no luck in hunting. I really wasn't interested, but they insisted I go. But the mother is showing her how to use a rangefinder.
Mhm.
Explain how a rangefinder works.
It's just kind of like radar, right? Where you can actually pick a tree or a rock or a stump, and you can click a button and it'll tell you that's at 20 yards, that's at 30 yards. And the reason, again, that's so important is everything arcs when you shoot it. When you shoot a bullet, it's not actually flat. There's an arc to it.
Right.
When,
Yeah.
when
Okay.
you shoot a bow, it's going a lot slower. So that
Right.
arc is much more,
Okay.
it
Yeah, I
comes
get
into
that, yeah.
play.
Yeah.
So if I think a deer is at 20 yards and I'm aiming at 30 yards, I'm going to miss that deer. Or if I think it's at 10 yards. So knowing distances when you're bow hunting is very, very important.
Is that an expensive piece of equipment, a rangefinder?
It can be, just like anything. You can get them pretty reasonable all the way up to hundreds of dollars, depending on what you're after.
Now, and guns and bows. I mean, what's the what's the lowest to the highest? I mean, I'm sure there's a big range
Yeah, I mean,
difference in guns and bows too.
for
Arrows.
people interested that are just starting to get involved with hunting, bow hunting, I'd literally, start at a tag sale. You should be able to get a reasonable bow or even a rifle for a couple $100. $100 for a bow, maybe 200 for a rifle. It doesn't have to be brand new, top of the line. Get something cheap would be my recommendation. Get a feel for it. If you like it and you want to advance yourself, then you can. And the sky's the limit. Again, another one of my sponsors is Cross Canyon Arms. They're a custom rifle maker out of Utah, and the guns that they're sending me are $5,000 a piece.
Wow.
And for an average guy, myself included in that,
Mm-hmm.
I personally wouldn't normally buy a
Right,
$5,000 rifle. I go down to Walmart
Mm-hmm.
and I spend $600 and I can go out back and shoot a deer the same as I can with a Cross Canyon rifle. But again, there's a market for that too. These are very accurate, long distance shooting weapons, and I'm proud to have them as a sponsor
Right.
too. So.
Now, in the book, Grace does shoot a deer, and but the deer runs off, and the mother, and she said, "Oh, let's go and let's go after the deer," and the mother says, "No, we will follow the blood trail."
Right.
Now, I don't know how long. See the mother says, "Wait," and before we have just run off to find out. Now, to me, I'm thinking about that poor deer is running off, suffering.
Right.
So I don't understand why you wait.
Why you wait?
Yeah.
Well, and again, it goes to, you would learn that in hunter education.
Yeah. Okay. That's
And it's how it works. Basically, a rifle, when you shoot an animal with a bullet, it dies from shock. There's a massive amount
okay.
of
Yeah. I
hemorrhaging.
can. All right.
When you skin off a deer, you'll see the trauma around the wound.
Oh, really?
And it instantly kills the deer with shocking power. With a bow, there's no shocking power. It's like, have you ever cut yourself with a razor and not known that you cut yourself?
Or a paper cut.
Yeah, because
Oh.
it happens so quick
Yeah,
and
I
it's
got
so
something
sharp
else, yeah.
that you don't notice.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. With a bow and arrow, we're not counting on shock. We're counting on massive hemorrhage, which is a really nice way to say bleeding to death.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to, the first thing when you shoot a deer, they always run with a bow most of the time. You should wait up to a half an hour. And that's, again, not to push that deer. If you don't push him, he's going to go 50 or 60 yards. He's going to lay down
And
because
lay
he
down.
doesn't feel good,
Right.
and he's going to die in his bed. As where if I instantly jump on that deer and start pushing it, I'm going to keep on pushing it, and it's going to keep on, and that's when it starts to suffer.
You're also introducing a lot of vocabulary to kids. You just mentioned instead of bleeding to death, you say hemorrhage.
Right.
And you use other terms as we've been talking here, as you said, being
Politically correct.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that, which we have to be so careful with nowadays.
know.
But drives me nuts. Now, seems like there was one more thing that I. Oh yeah, no, I mentioned that. Now, I want to talk, getting away from the books a little bit, camouflage and footwear. I see you come into the station here, and you have a lot of camouflage outfits that you wear. I would think that some people, if you're out in the woods and you're too camouflaged,
Mhm.
I'm afraid I would get shot.
Yeah, well, they can't see if they can't shoot you. And that's a theory.
But
right?
should you
People
be
hunt
wearing also like red or orange or something over that
Yeah,
camouflage?
it's been proven again statistically orange is 7 times safer. So your chances of getting, shot in an accident if wearing orange are 7
Orange
times
rather
less.
than
Right.
red.
But again, that's another fallacy. Shasta, I think, nails it as far as the media. If it bleeds, it leads. Guns are so safe. Even if you throw in crime and suicide by a police officer and all the other things that go with gun deaths, guns are still very, very safe. It's one of the safe hunting specifically is one of the safest activities you can do.
I would think at this time of year when we're out there deer hunting, red and orange is a big color because of the leaves changing and stuff like that.
Sure.
Now, the deer aren't put off by that sight. I mean, what kind of
No.
sight do they have? Do you know?
They see in the ultraviolet spectrum, so they see
Oh.
in shades of gray.
Oh, okay.
They don't see solid, or they can
They
see a
don't see the-
solid color though. If you're wearing a solid orange jacket, they can see that it's a big solid color.
Okay.
That's why they actually have camouflage orange
Oh,
too.
okay.
It's got
Okay,
a
I'm
pattern
orange.
to
Okay,
it,
I
right?
guess yeah, I've seen that.
And
Yeah.
again, that's just you're trying to break up your human shape in the woods.
Right.
Personally, I wear camouflage all the time.
Right.
When I take my kids, I make sure that they've got orange gloves and an orange hat on.
Oh, gloves too. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about gloves. Yeah, that's another thing.
Well, your hands are constantly
Right.
moving, and
Right, right.
in the woods, that's white, and a deer has a white tail that
okay.
flicks around just like a hand
Okay.
does. But again, a lot of those are they're fallacies. Like I said, hunting is very safe. I don't feel concerned when I go out in the woods. I don't feel like my life is in danger. It's more dangerous driving to the hunting location
Yeah.
than actually hunting.
What about footwear?
Yeah, footwear is important too, and again, it depends on what type of a hunt you're going to be involved in. With bow hunting, we talked about getting real close to an animal. I like to wear rubber because it's scent free, because you're that close where they can
Okay.
smell. If you drink coffee, if you eat bacon, if you pump gas on the way to your spot, the deer are going to smell that.
I was wondering about the scent on them. What about
Yeah.
if you're wearing a scent of some sort,
Yep.
whether you're deodorant or if you're wearing heavy cologne or
Well, they make
evidently you probably aren't supposed to do that.
you're not. They actually make you can get scent-free toothpaste and scent-free deodorant and laundry
Oh, okay.
soap and
All right. Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
you're supposed to be doing all that stuff when you go
Oh,
hunting.
okay.
And likewise, there's scents available that we can buy and use. I can use a doe and estrus urine or a fox urine or acorn scent or apples. We can use different scents to try to cover and mask our
How are you
scents,
going
too.
around getting this urine?
Well, they have deer facilities that actually do
Oh,
it.
okay, that they offer that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
you say it's funny, but in Vermont
No, I
state,
mean, it's funny,
in
but-
Vermont, they can a doe when they pee, it's just like a buck will have a hole and a doe squats and
Yeah,
she'll
yeah.
have a big thing.
Right,
Well,
right.
in Vermont, when it's cold, that'll freeze. And I've actually taken those frozen urine patties back to deer camp and melted them
Okay.
and used that
right,
because
well,
it's a
no different
local
than
deer.
cow
And it's
patties and
yeah,
all that, yeah.
well, and again, some people might look at that as gross, but
Yeah.
that's what we do
Yeah.
when we're that
Well, again,
into getting a deer.
it's nature. You're using nature to help you once
Yeah,
again
in
with
what we
this
do.
hunting process.
Yeah.
Now, I don't. Where do you know where to get a hold of these books?
Well, I know you can
I
go
know
to
you-
Whitetail Press, their website,
Okay.
and get them on there. In fact,
And it
that's
also says you can visit www.whitetailpress.com.
right.
So all right. So I will make sure that Ryan has this too. But www.whitetailpress.com, and it says there's more exciting hunting books. So I would assume that they're geared towards kids.
They are.
Or is Whitetail Press for adults too?
Well, I think it's for both. I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing this with my kids. That's my time together with them. And again, it doesn't matter if it's hunting we're talking about or anything else. The earlier that we can get kids involved, the more likely they're going to pick it up and do it. Again, as a professional hunter, I get criticized a lot, and people say, "Oh my God, how can you make your kids hunt?" And believe me, I don't make my kids hunt because they've been petting deer since they were in diapers, and they are begging
And petting zoos
to,
and all that. Yeah.
to go hunting with me because they've seen me do it and they know that I like it. And especially for kids, I don't even think it's that important that they get a deer. It's spending time with dad. It's that quality one-on-one time. I
Yeah,
mean,
that bonding.
when I'm in the woods with a kid, it's a captive audience. I can stand on the sideline of a soccer game just like any other dad and jump up and down and scream and holler. But when I'm alone with my kid in the blind, there's nothing to do. Hunting is kind of boring for the most part. So you can talk about sex and drugs and all those important issues that most parents are afraid to talk with. And guess what? Your kids talk back in that,
That situation.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So I think that's that's what I use hunting for. It's a lot more than just putting food on the table.
How do you handle it when somebody gives you a lot of grief about hunting? I mean, I had no plans to give you any grief about hunting, and I don't plan to
Well,
give you any
and
grief.
it's a
But
good
if
question.
somebody came up to you and said, "I can't believe you're hunting. I can't believe you're taking these kids out into the woods and teaching them how to kill animals," and how do you handle that?
Yeah, in fact, ironically enough, a lot of the letters that I get suggest killing people. Killing a rabbit or deer is wrong, but they're literally going to stalk my kids on the way home from school.
Well,
which
that's
is
another thing too. With all this,
it is.
I hate to get serious, but with all this gun violence, everything that's going on in the
Sure.
colleges and different shootings and
Well,
stuff like
it's
that,
it's funny. I handle it a lot different than most hunters, because I think I understand anti-hunters a little more, and it's ironic to me that they want the same things that we want. They want more animals. They want more opportunities. Animals in our future is the same exact thing as me. They just don't know how to get there, and it's from ignorance. And I don't mean dumb at all.
No, I know.
I mean they're just not educated. They don't know how to get there because they've never been told. Every deer that I shoot is one less deer for them to see. Is the general thought process. So you have to explain it. How do I kill a deer or help deer by killing a deer? That has to be explained to most people. So that's what I do. Again, hunters, very passionate people. Anti-hunters, very passionate people. And when they come together, it takes about 2 seconds for the names to start flying around, and it's ugly. So what I'll do is I'll actually compliment the person right off the bat. You're obviously very passionate about wildlife. How can you be against something that helps wildlife?
Right.
And that's a setup, because the response I get back is, well, how does hunting help wildlife? Well, now we're talking about it. And literally within 4 or 5 paragraphs, like 99%, there's always the one guy I'm not going to change, but 99% of the people come back and they'll say, well, geez, Kevin, I think you're okay the way you're doing it, but the rest of those murdering pigs. And I'm like, no, that's what you don't get. I'm an average guy. I'm an average hunter. We do this for animals. We do it to feed our family. And, there's a certain pride involved of doing this, processing your own meat.
I wonder if anyone's ever done a study about all of these killings that go on in schools and stuff, if they've ever done a study on whether these people have ever hunted, if they've, had the proper training and I mean, of course, a lot of these problems it's a problem. They're mentally unbalanced.
You can't
or
fix
something
crazy.
Like that.
That's absolutely it. I think one of the biggest things, and you don't hear about it because the pharmaceutical companies are worth money, but it's the antidepressants. If you look at all these mass shootings, every one of the people who are, committing these crimes are on antidepressants.
Yeah, if people have the wrong combination of medication, it can drive them really crazy. It really can.
And I think that's, unfortunately, that's the problem. I don't believe in gun laws. Everybody's saying we should do this and that. But
that was another thing.
I'm saying, well, why don't we have a law that says you can't murder people? Oh, wait, we do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. And that's
the
problem with laws. I mean, all these crimes, whether it's in a movie theater or a school or these other places, they're gun-free zones. So, like, how did that happen? That was the end-all, cure-all law where we could make it a gun-free zone. It doesn't matter if you're a criminal. You don't care about laws. It's
I know people who are afraid to go to the
simple.
movies.
Yeah.
Because what if some crazy person comes in there?
Well, and again, this is so over-sensationalized because it's a big deal.
Media. Oh, yeah.
Well, and it's
The
a big
media
deal.
is going to make it-
Nobody wants our school shot up or to,
No.
be worrying about that stuff in a movie theater. But if there wasn't guns, there'd be some other form of tool that they would use to do it.
Are you? I'm assuming you're a member of the NRA.
I am.
Okay.
Lifetime member.
I can remember. My wife was a big fan of Tom Selleck. She loved Magnum PI.
Yeah.
And he was on a talk show once.
With Rosie.
And he said he was a member of the NRA. Immediately, No longer
No
was
more.
she a fan of Tom Selleck. That was it. I
Yeah.
mean, she was really against.
Well, and again, you know,
And she had, everyone has the right to their own feelings,
sure.
and I don't think anyone has the right to push something on you. I mean, if you were to say, "Okay, Willie, I want you to go hunting. I want you to see what it's and feel. I want you to get the whole sense of being out in nature, and you're going to shoot a deer and all that stuff," and I say to you, "Sorry, Kevin, I
Yeah,
just
can't.
can't do it." I know because I know you.
Yeah,
You're not wouldn't force me to do something
I
like
wouldn't.
that.
Yeah.
And
No,
I don't think you'd force anyone.
hunting's a personal choice. I mean,
Right.
I understand that not everybody can do it, not everybody should do it, but I think everybody, if you love wildlife, and I don't know a single person that doesn't love wildlife,
Oh,
if you
no.
love wildlife, I think you owe it to the wildlife to understand the science behind conservation. This is literally how animals made it this far in history. Why we have animals today and why animal populations are at an all-time high is because of hunting. Without it, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Specifically, it's called, the North American conservation model. We do things a lot different here in the States than they do in Africa and they do in Europe.
Yeah, that.
And they're in trouble over there. Their animals are in trouble, as where we've got a nice, solid, sound management system that works. And why would we want to change that?
I know you hear about all these endangered species in Africa, and
It is.
it's really sad when you hear that.
It is
And that, I think that is one of the places where people aren't as careful.
Yeah. Well, and even
It's
here,
not as politically correct.
even
there.
here
They-
in the
they're-
States, there's a group. It's actually, if you go to the National Shooting Sports Foundation website, they have a group called the Unendangered Species. And the white-tailed deer is on them. At the turn of the century, there was about 100,000 white-tailed deer in the United States. Today, there's 22 million.
Wow.
The wild turkey, the Rocky Mountain elk, the pronghorn antelope, all these animals were literally on the verge of extinction. And, well, I don't want to say extinction, but they were threatened.
Threatened.
And then this guy named Teddy Roosevelt came along and started the conservation movement and our Forestry Service and our National Park System. And that was, again, even Teddy Roosevelt will say, even before he was a president, he was a hunter. And I think that love and passion that he had for wildlife is why regulated hunting came into play and why, we have such great populations, like you said.
Now the name of your show is The Future of Hunting. What is the future of hunting, as far as you're concerned? I mean,
Well, I think the kids, and again, I kind of stole that from We Are the World, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do. I think the kids are our future. I think, after I'm gone, after my generation's gone, somebody else has got to pick up these pieces. Somebody's got to keep fighting and educating. Education is very key. My show, for the people that watch it, I try to make it as much for the non-hunter as I do for the hunter. Hopefully somebody who doesn't hunt can still tune into my show and see people having a good time
I
in the
enjoy the
outdoors.
kids.
Well,
I enjoy
that's-
the kids.
And that's part of it. Cute smiling kids doesn't matter how much money you make or what race or religion you are. These are all kids having fun. And like I said, in the outdoors, I don't think you get much better.
Where's the in all these your travels and everything like that? Where are some of the best places that you went?
That's a tough question.
Because I'm
People
sure
ask me
they're
that
all
the
very
time.
different.
They are all very different. We just had an opportunity to take a critically endangered pear David deer this last June. I had a 13-year-old boy with cancer, and we actually took him to hunt an animal that's been extinct in the wild for over 800 years. Very unique experience, very cool story.
Huh.
So, and again, I can see Willie with his mouth
Well,
open
no,
here.
I mean, yeah, no, I mean.
Well,
That's,
it's most people. I was thrilled to have that story to be able to tell people
Sure.
that I hunted
Right.
an endangered animal because it gets a response. Oh my God! And you shot it? We did shoot it, but the history behind the pear David deer is very unique because, again, they've been gone from the wild for 800 years. The last person to own these animals was the Emperor of China. And the emperor, at the time, it was against the law to even look at these deers. They're under armed guard in a walled preserve in China. And a preacher from France, Père, his father. So Père David, Father
okay.
David.
I was going to ask.
Actually,
why
that's where
that
the name came
Okay.
from. He actually, paid off an imperial guard, which is probably the only time in history breaking a wildlife law saved a species. But he paid off the guards, fell in love with these deer after he got a glimpse of them. He traded gold for a dozen deer. Those 12 deer were sent to a private abbey in England, and that was right before this massive flood devastated China and killed all the David deer except 4. So literally there's 4 deer left in the world, and it was during the bloody Boxer Revolution, and when the Mongols took over and took hold of the emperor's palace and preserve, they literally ate the last deer in existence. So at the time, there were 16 deer left in the world in that private abbey in England. But again, Father David learned from the emperor's mistake. He didn't want to keep all his deer in one proverbial basket, right? So he started shipping them all over the world to zoos and hunting preserves. Unfortunately for the David deer, they don't like captivity. So the zoo thing fell through. We can't have them in zoos. They died off. So literally, since then, hunting preserves have kept them alive. And these things are valued because they're limited.
Right.
Right now, there's about 2,000 David deer left in the world. We harvest about 100 a year.
Okay.
And again, I feel very privileged and honored to be one of those people who got to experience that. They're a very unique animal. But it's a good example of where, instead of preservation, which is usually what happens, if we wanted to shoot a Bengal tiger or a black rhino, we're out of luck because the government steps in and says we're going to protect these animals,
Right.
and you can't shoot them.
Right.
So unlike that, the David deer, they're all privately owned, so the government really has no say.
Right.
Which is bad in the sense we could wipe them out tomorrow, but good in the sense that these are conservation-minded people, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have them for years and years to come.
And you work in all these different terrains too.
Right.
I mean that. So I'm assuming that the equipment, the shoe, the footwear, the camo, whatever, wherever you're going,
Yeah.
you have to pack for that
Appropriately.
area that you're going to,
Sure.
and be aware if it's going to be hot, if it's going to be
That's
cold.
it. From negative 40 all the way to over 100 degrees. Sometimes you're in the plains, sometimes you're in the mountains, all different elevations.
You mentioned
I hit it all.
a hunting camp. Are there a lot of hunting camps around in this area?
Oh, extremely. I think hunting camp is its own rite of passage. It's its own experience that everybody should do.
I know we're getting very close to ending here. I think Ryan just snuck in, and I saw that our
Showed you the
clock
queue?
up there said we only got a minute. But I just want to thank you so much, and I want to remind people again, the 2 books, Wyatt's First Whitetail and Grace Goes Bow Hunting, by Shasta Sitton, and illustrated by Marvin Teeples. You can go to www.whitetailpress.com to find out about these books. You could go order through them or find out other books that they might have to offer. And I want to thank Kevin for coming in, because I know when he came up to you, he said, "I don't know if you want to do this or not," and I know you're not, but I thought, yeah, I'm willing to do this, and I think we had a really great conversation here.
Well, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing this show myself. And anything I might not have picked up, I'll try to pick it up as we.
Well,
as the show
I
goes on.
appreciate
So,
you having me. Like I said, if
I
people
thank
are
you.
interested in getting their kids involved, this is a great early start
Right.
tool to do that.
And I want to thank everybody for listening. We've had a really great show today, and I hope you'll come back for our next show, Your Friends and Neighbors. So for now, goodbye. Thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you, Willy.
And to all of you, have a pleasant whatever, morning, evening, afternoon. Thank you.
Happy hunting.
Happy hunting, right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Take a long look around, I have to say, this time of year, it becomes clear, those you hold dear, you draw them near, this time of day,